if you meet 1,000 homeless people, you have 1,000 reasons how they ended up homeless. Now, it may fit into one of those three categories generally, or maybe combined, but what brings them there is individual just as much as you and I are.
Can we stop with the costumes that are basically like any opportunity for a woman to just dress like a hoe?
Fishnets. They always have fishnet stockings, whatever it is.
Do you need a plumber with fishnet stockings as part of the outfit? Do you need sexy mechanic? Do we need sexy everything? It's almost absurd at this point.
She just won, I think it was last week, the lottery in Virginia. And she, with her $1 ticket, she won $150,000. Now that's great anyway, but what she did with it was very interesting. She ended up giving all of it away.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mandy, and this is my friend Deb.
Hi there. And together we are Mandy and Deb.
Today, first of all, I didn't mean to introduce myself and then introduce Deb.
It's okay.
It's not like we don't do this every single time we do a show.
It's okay. I'm comfortable and confident in who I am. I have
Excellent.
no problems.
After the last few weeks where I feel like it's been really heavy because there's been some big, heavy topics, today I'm super excited to talk about solutions.
Yes,
solutions
indeed.
At work.
Yes,
for
indeed.
an issue that has plagued us, not just in Colorado, but all over the country. A little bit later in the show, we're going to be talking about homelessness and solutions that work versus solutions that sound good, which get a lot of play. And I am all about solutions at work. I'm one of those people that thinks allowing people to live on the streets like animals is not compassionate. It's not humane. And I want to see these people get the help that they desperately need. And we've got a guest to talk about that today.
We do. And the thing I would add to that too, it's also not humane to just keep somebody in the situation that got them there in the first place.
Right.
Our goal is not just to get them off the street, is to help people flourish. And if you haven't guessed, we've got issues. And this is the issue we're going to talk about. We've got issues. And to talk about this subject, we're so excited to have joining us someone who knows very much about this. And this is Major General Jack Briggs, retired. He's also the former president and CEO of Springs Rescue Mission, someone who did a really great job in this area and was very successful. Jack, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to join Deb and Mandy. I'll introduce you backwards there so that it's all.
There you go.
Did you notice that, Mandy?
Well, we don't care. We went back and forth for a long time on who's
point for me on that one.
We just like the fact that Mandy and Deb spelled mad when it was initials. So
don't
there you
get
go.
mad, get mad.
Yeah, there you go.
We go.
I'd like to ask you a little bit, Jack, because homelessness is something that I've been talking about on my radio show literally for 20 years. So this is not a new problem. It is a problem that has many complex inputs. And that's kind of why I wanted to start the conversation, because working with the rescue mission in the Colorado Springs area, I am positive you probably have seen it all, heard it all. But what are some of the biggest reasons that people end up in a shelter in the first place? How do they end up homeless? What are some of the undercurrents that we need to be addressing?
That's a really good question. And when you ask that question to people or they start to think about it themselves, they typically come up with three big answers to that. One is addiction. The second is maybe a mental health issue. And the third is just abject poverty. But what I want to say that's important for people to understand is if you meet 1,000 homeless people, you have 1,000 reasons how they ended up homeless. Now, it may fit into one of those three categories generally, or maybe combined, but what brings them there is individual just as much as you and I are. So when we think about how do we approach homelessness, we at the Rescue Mission tried and were very successful by focusing on three things. The first thing is you want to have transactions with people. The reason you want transactions is because out on the street, everything is a transaction. If I do this, you'll do that. If you do that, I'll do this. There's no altruism. And so to speak the language of someone that's on the street, you have to have a transaction. The second thing is you need to have incentives. Now, the incentive model is intuitive to anybody. If I say, whatever you incentivize, you're going to get more of. So if I incentivize someone staying on the street, you will get more people on the street. It's that simple. Imagine I wake up one morning and I have nothing and I'm on the street. And I hear if I go to the street corner, I can maybe get some money or some food. And I go there and I spend some time on that street corner and I get some money and some food. The next morning when I wake up and I want more stuff, what am I going to do? I'm going to go back to that street corner because it's reinforcing. It's an incentive, right? So we want to break those incentive cycles by providing positive incentives to people. That could be healthcare. It could be helping with helping to get their kids back. There's a litany of things that you can do as incentives. So it's transactions, incentives, and the third thing is partnerships. So partnerships are very critical because there's no one organization that can solve all the problems. Any organization that tells you that is, well, I think they have delusions of grandeur. You have to bring in other organizations. Now, the rescue mission that I ran, Gospel Rescue Mission, faith, that's our secret sauce. There were organizations who said, Jack, I don't think I can work with you because of that faith thing. And I'm like, okay, I totally understand that. Let me ask you a different question. Do you think people have worth? 100% of people say yes. I go, you know what? I agree with you. I think people have worth too. Now, we could sit here and debate. I think their worth came from the creator of the universe choosing to die for just them. That's where I come from. You may have another reason that you think people have worth. But for just this minute, can we work together because we agree that person has worth? Can we do that? Pretty much everybody's like, I'll give it a try. More often than not, at the end of those partnerships, they come to me and they say, you know, you faith people aren't so bad. And I say, you know what? You're not so bad either. Let's do it again.
Do you call him a heathen just for good measure? No, I'm just kidding.
No,
that's a real bridge building thing.
I have a follow-up.
No, that's the undermining of the partnership.
I have a follow-up question to that because in my experiences, I'm a talk show host, so I've interviewed so many people that have either worked in, I hate to say the homeless industry, but it kind of is an industry in some ways.
Can be.
And what I hear so often from a lot of organizations is that so much of this is also trauma-based. So people have significant trauma in their lives. It could come from military service. It could come from a horrible relationship. It can come from their childhood. How much of that underlying trauma is also sort of mixed into this stew of all the other underlying causes?
Very much. It's very important for people to understand that when you do work, you do trauma-informed work in this area. You don't know where that trauma happened. It could be when they were 8 years old. And the stories that I won't tell you of what happens to 8-year-old children in a family, and they become addicted because they're just trying to quiet the voices in their head. That's it. It's heartbreaking. And to unpeel all those years of just guilt and shame and physical abuse and mental abuse and verbal abuse, it's brutal. And so there's no easy solution. And sometimes we have organizations with all the good intention that you could possibly imagine. They describe homelessness as a housing issue. Homelessness at the level I'm talking about is not a housing issue. The people that I'm dealing with, they're struggling to cling to the next day. And to provide them with a house or an apartment or something like that, it might feel good, but they're not equipped for it yet. And you want them to get there, absolutely, but that's not the starting point. And some people will say, well, if you stabilize them in a house, then everything else will follow. And I disagree. I believe that the proper sequencing is the other way around.
Well, and let's talk about that, Jack, because you just brought up the very next question I was going to ask. Because, when you see this trauma, when you see people on the street, everyone of compassion is like, let's get these people off the street. But it's a good intent, but there was a startling statistic I remember that illustrates the very point you made, which is when in San Francisco, they just got everybody off of the street. They got everybody that they could, rounded them up, got them into hotels and other places. 40% of them died within just a couple of weeks because, as you said, they were not equipped for that. Can you talk about just housing, as they resolve housing first versus housing with accountability, with structure, with expecting something of the person who's actually trying to get out of the situation. Can you talk about the model that does work?
Sure. So imagine someone is on the street and they've made a choice to try something new, and they get connected with a service organization, an organization like the rescue mission. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to do an assessment about where you're at, because what we need to do is we need to provide some space for you, women in particular, right? On the street, they're defending their space, but they can't, and so they don't own their own space, right? They have to trade it for safety. I'll just be, without being too blunt. So they come to the rescue mission. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to say, this is your space. No one else is allowed in. That's it. I mean, if you say no, they're not allowed in. You could invite somebody in, but you don't have to, right? And what happens is you start to see that individual maybe comb their hair, maybe want to put on a little eye makeup or something. They start to reestablish their identity as opposed to just an object on the street. And this is critically important, because when we start to build their identity back for them, working with them to do that, their space, their agency, right? Then we can start to add things. We can get those incentives in there. Like, when was the last time you got to see your kids, or your family, or somebody like that? What would you like to see them? Can we work on that? I don't know if they'll ever want to see me. You know what? I bet if we work on this stuff, I bet you they'll want to see you. I bet you they will, right? And you start to build these incentives. And then maybe we go to one of our partners who specializes in abused women. And we get them counseling, and we get them maybe some health care that they needed from the abuse that they've taken, all of these different things, right? You do that in this transition phase. And then once they start to establish themselves and you see them, they don't wear the clothes that maybe they wore on the street. They start to speak in a different language. They look forward to the day. You start to build in them. Let's see some skills. What skills did you used to have? Did you work at a building? Did you work at a restaurant? Let's reignite those skills, right? And so we have some work training that you do. And then finally, when we start to see this work training building esteem, I do something, I get something, right? Then, and I control that. Now we start thinking about, what does maybe some transitional housing look like? This can take a year, but that transitional housing is still connected with the rescue mission, because they need to be able to touch it. Even though they're kind of out on their own, they kind of need to be able to touch this help in case they need it. Eventually, they realize, I can do this, right? And you've moved somebody from the street all the way back into society.
I've had the great privilege of working with Step Denver, which is an organization here in Denver that helps men overcome addiction. And I cannot tell you how many of the graduates of the Step Denver program that I've interviewed. And one of the things that is a consistent theme, Jack, and I'm guessing you've heard the same thing, is they'll say, Step Denver helped me get my humanity back. When I was living on the streets, I almost had forgotten what it was like to be a part of society, and just having a stable foundation to regain your humanity. And you just don't think about it when you walk by that person on the streets in the throes of addiction. It's so easy to just say, well, they shouldn't have done drugs in the first place, or whatever you're going to say. It's so easy to be dismissive. But when you realize that they have come out of this nightmarish, hellish struggle that the most of us will never, thankfully, ever have to deal with, it sort of does give you a different perspective. And that loss of humanity, for me, the first time someone said that to me, I was like, wow. Then I hear it over and over and over again, that just going and getting a job, They never thought they would have a job again, things of that nature. I'm guessing you've heard some of that as well.
Right. I would, for your listeners, for your audience, I'm going to give them a tool that they can do. Right. So, what do you think the number one question people ask me when I talk about homelessness? What do you think the number one question is when they ask me? They go, "Oh, Jack, you do homelessness. Let me ask you this question. What do you think that question is?"
I would think it's, what should I do? Should I give something to somebody when I see them? I don't know if that's the number one, but that's probably what a lot of people are thinking.
The number one question is exactly that.
Yeah.
It's not, are they really homeless or are they all addicted? It's, "Hey, Jack, when I pull up to the stoplight
Yeah.
in my car and someone has a sign, what do I do?" And I know why people ask that. They ask it because they feel guilty. They see somebody who appears to have very little. They have stuff. Maybe their kids are in the car and they're like, "Mommy, what's that all about?" Well, we're going to be nice to this person. All right. I'm going to tell you the answer to your question about what to do. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you do at that moment. You could give them something because you feel that way, or you could just keep your window up and ignore them. Now, I'm not trying to be hard-hearted or cruel. I'm just being honest. Whatever you do at that moment will not change their situation in the long run. It does not, right? You're really assuaging your own guilt. You're making yourself feel better, right? But you can do what I do. You can roll your window down, right? And you can look at them and you can ask, "What's your name?" And they may answer Sugar or Tiger or Cowboy. Those are street names.
Right.
You say, "No, no, 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 no. My name's Jack. What's your name?" Most of the time they'll answer you with like, "My name's Thomas. It's nice to meet you, Thomas. I hope you have a safe day." Don't say, "I hope you have a good day," because there's no good days on the street. Okay. I'm just going to say that. But what you're doing there is magic, because for that moment, you and that person are equal. Because is Thomas's or my name better? They're the same. We're looking at each other as people. Now, the light may change, or you may have another second. Hey, go to the rescue mission. They can help you with food, clothing, shelter, getting help with your addiction. Whatever you can spit out, right? Go to the rescue mission. Denver, Colorado Springs, wherever you are, right? But do this. Light's going to change. You're going to roll your window up and you're going to look at your rearview mirror and they're staring at your car. Why? Because for many of the people that do this, it's the first time they've said their real name out loud in years.
Wow.
Wow.
Right? It's the first time they've actually said their name. Why do I know this? Because when they would come to the rescue mission, they would say, "Hey, Jack, you asked me my name." I said, "Yeah, I remember you, Mary."
Wow.
And they say, "I hadn't said my name in years.
Wow.
You reminded me what my name was."
It's
right?
Wow.
Just do that.
Yeah.
That's the moment that you change from observing someone on the street as the person with the sign to the person.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's amazing. And what I love about that, Jack, is that's something that every single one of us can do. And I like the second part too. Ask them their name and then say, "Have you thought of going to Step Denver? Have you thought of going, if you're down in the Colorado Springs area or wherever you are, when you're watching this." I think that's great, but it's reinstituting the dignity of the individual, which is why places like Step Denver, places like Springs Rescue Mission are the answer, because it doesn't just put somebody off the street, because that's not really the problem. The problem is not that. The problem is what got them there to a dehumanized place where they had no agency over their own lives or sense of self.
Right. So Jack, let me ask a question about the people that you have seen come through the mission that have been successful and remained sober and employed and all of those nice metrics that we really hope for. Do they have anything in common, in your estimation, that maybe the folks that are still struggling are lacking? Or is there something specific that they can teach people who are still struggling to help them get over the hurdle?
Yeah. There's 4 things that help somebody to reintegrate themselves. Okay. So if I'm on the street, it's chaos. It's just absolute chaos. I'm just surviving, right? But human beings that have integrity in themselves, I'm not talking about just telling the truth. I'm talking about the wholeness. So the word integrity comes from integer, which is a whole. It's like a 1 or a 2 or a 3. It's not a 1.3 or a 7.5, right? It's 1, 2, 3. It's whole, right? And there's 4 areas of that. There's spiritual, there's physical, right? There's what I would call mental, and the 4th is relational, right? And most people are on the street, they've sacrificed maybe all 4 of them, but so first we got to get you physically healthy, right? And we're going to work on your spirituality, because most people, when they can tie in to the spiritual part of their life, and I have a version of that I am I advocate quite vociferously, but I'm going to tell you that whatever that is, it's critical for you. This mental piece is to stabilize your image of yourself mentally, that I'm not a waste, that
Right.
I count, I matter,
You have
I
value.
produce, right? And the last one is relational. So you cannot do this alone. Nobody can just gut it out alone. So you come to the rescue mission, we help you with that. But we also bring in the community. We bring in your family. We bring in your friends, if we can do that, right? We try to build back into you this integrity of these things in your life. And until you get those kind of straight, you're going to probably be struggling. Now, you're not going to be perfect at any of them. It's kind of a diamond in the rough, if you will.
Well, not everyone can be as perfect as we are, Jack. So there you go.
Well, Jack, I mean, we could talk about this for so long, but our time's coming to an end. We really appreciate this because it does give people a different perspective of why it's not just a housing issue and why that is not the solution. It's this multifaceted solution, the kind of work that gets done at the Springs Rescue Mission and other organizations like that. There we go. I love that. We see what you're holding up.
Very nice.
Where would you like to send people? Is there any website that you want to share before we let you go?
You can go to springsrescuemission.org, or you can go to denverrescuemission.org if you want to do that. We wrote a book. It's called Meeting Homelessness with Hope. There's an audio book, and there's the regular book that's on Amazon. You can get that. All that stuff goes to the rescue mission. All the proceeds go to that. And the last thing is on my website, it's jackbriggs.co, all one word, jackbriggs.co. In fact, today I blogged about homelessness.
I have one quick question to ask right before we go. How did you get into this industry, Jack?
That's a long story.
Well, okay, part 2 with Jack coming up on a later episode.
And I'll just say it this way, because now I was going to thank you anyway. I think pretty much it's also because you've had a life of service, and we want to thank you both for your service in the military, your service to those who are homeless, and the faith that drives both of them. We really appreciate that, Jack, and thank you so much for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Jack.
Thanks. Well, before we go from this topic, I think it's really interesting because when you think about, that human interaction, and that's where the healing takes place, when we put this down into practicality, I think we can all begin to look at the fact that, hundreds of millions of dollars being put just into little tiny homes or putting people off into hotels, that's not actually solving the issue. Yes, you've got to get them into shelter first so they can begin to have that safe space. But then building from that, at the same time that this situation was just exploding in the Denver area, there were all kinds of Arapaho houses that were doing the same work as Step Denver, and the funding stopped for those. And then they began to put a ton of money just into tiny homes. And we really need to know that there's a connection there.
I think for me, one of the things that I am trying to work on is remembering that these are human beings. Yes. They all have a story. They all have a tale. They all have trauma. They all have reasons behind how they ended up how they ended up. But when you see kind of a person who's obviously detached from reality, whacked out on drugs, wandering around downtown Denver through an intersection wearing nothing but a blanket, it's hard to remember that. So injecting that humanity back in is something that, regardless of where you are on the issue or whether or not you're going to give money to someone on the streets, that's something that we should all take to heart, just so we don't get into the habit of othering people because their struggles have led them to this place.
Yeah, and I think the key then is we all actually see that, and we do want to make sure that the problem is actually solved.
Yeah.
And then it's taking that extra step to go beyond the compassion to the solution, because the most loving thing is getting somebody out of a dependency in that lifestyle to the core issues itself.
I want to say one thing about addiction, though, because there is this misnomer that has been like said for years and years and years. People have to want rehab. They have to want to get sober. In my radio career, I cannot even tell you how many people that I have interviewed who have gone through programs like through the Rescue Mission or through Step Denver that were ordered by a judge to get sober. When I say, how did you finally decide to get sober? Oh, a judge told me if I wasn't clean for 5 years that I would be going to jail for 12. So the notion that somehow forced rehab does not work is factually incomplete. It is as effective as voluntary rehab.
It is.
As effective.
But there was also a consequence there. There was something where they got to the end of themselves and said, okay, there's an actual consequence here. And that's what I think works with the rescue mission. I mean, you've got to do some work. You have to take some ownership of it. But if we remove all possible consequences, then why would somebody ever want to make that change? They may be forced to, but what's the consequence? They chose that rather than going to jail or whatever else.
Exactly.
Well, now we're going to move on because we also have stuff. So
it's fall, y'all. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this fall colors. Yes,
leaves should be dropping. We should replace this with leaves. But anyway, you can use your imagination. So we want to talk about one of the topics that comes around this time every year, which is Halloween. So why don't you kick it off?
Okay, first of all, I know people that are obsessed with Halloween. I am not one of them.
I am not either.
Here's why. I feel a lot of pressure to not just have a costume, but to have the world's best costume wherever I go. And I've literally ruined the holiday for myself. I really have. So this year we got invited to a Halloween party, and I was like, well, maybe we'll go to a Halloween party. I start looking for costumes.
Oh yeah, this is a whole topic. Here
Y'all,
we go.
Okay, I'm a woman of a certain age. Okay, I like
She's
to look
a
nice.
summer chicken.
We're
am. Summer chicken.
I'm a summer chicken, not a spring chicken.
No.
Can we stop with the costumes that are basically like any opportunity for a woman to just dress like a hoe?
They always have fishnet stockings, whatever it is.
Do you need a plumber with fishnet stockings as part of the outfit? Do you need sexy mechanic? Do we need sexy everything? It's almost absurd at this point.
I think it's actually a bunch of guys that put these together and go, oh, this is my fantasy calendar. Do you know what's even worse? Is then you look at costumes for kids, and I remember our daughter just simply wanted to be a Black Panther kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And everywhere I looked, I'm not kidding you, she is 10 at the time. Every single outfit had like that little like French made skirt with it and fishnet stockings. I'm like, the fun of Halloween is actually pretend and make believe, not how sexy can an 8-year-old look in a panther costume.
Have you tried to buy children's shorts that cover their entire rear end? Because that's become an impossibility. Can I just have like an old woman rant for a minute?
I think we just put all girls in like men's larges, you know?
There you go. Well, I'm the mom walking through the store asking the little clerk, I'm like, where are the whole shirts? Like the entire shirt. We want the shirt that goes all the way down.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you remember the scene of Bernie Sanders sitting on the steps of the Capitol and he has his mittens on and he's got his arm crossed? Do you know that there was a sexy Bernie Sanders costume based on that?
I'm sorry, that's an oxymoron.
It's
sorry,
true.
Mrs. Sanders.
Well, she didn't have pants on. She didn't have pants in the costume. No pants.
Goodness.
Just the Bernie sweater, the mask, and the mittens. And I'm like, what are we doing?
Yeah, so this is an issue because like I'm like you, I'm not obsessed with it. And there are certain things my family just doesn't do because, we're Christians and we're like, okay, we don't want to do the evil stuff, but the fun stuff and the joy of it. And I actually found something with Kirk Cameron, who is well known, obviously, and is well known for both his faith and the projects he does. he was telling people, Christians don't just reject it, but make it an opportunity to get back to what I think it's about, which is also community. So he was like, have the best block party, around. And I also think when we look at this now from a perspective of children, things have changed drastically since COVID. And I had friends who were in LA and their kids were not even allowed to go outside. And then people now are worried and all this. But I think there's also alternatives. First of all, for ourselves, no, you just make your own costume if you have to. Don't wear the little, fishnets with everything.
Wait, I could go as a sexy old lady, a sexy summer chicken. That's what I can do.
You
sexy
already are
summer
that.
chicken. There
you already. That's not once
Nailed
a year.
It.
Got it. But then I think about activities like you're going to a party, which is fun. I think like for kids or grandkids, whatever your situation might be, there's a lot of different ways to do this. Like the trunk or treats that people have.
I don't love the trunk or treat. And here's why. Because when we were kids, that's how we got to know where all of our neighbors lived.
Oh, without a doubt.
So I mean, we go up and down the street, and it's like, Mrs. Williams, who lived down the street from us, she would make like a whole bag of candy for each of the kids in the neighborhood. There'd be a popcorn ball that she made. There would be candy. There'd be brownies. There'd be cookies.
Won't fly now because it wasn't, officially wrapped in a.
Well, then word got out that Mrs. Williams had all the good stuff. So then other people started coming to our neighborhood. She gave everybody else's kids an apple, and she gave us all the good stuff. But that's how we learned our neighborhood.
And that's the first choice. But what's interesting is we used to have a lot of trick-or-treaters around our house.
You have a good neighborhood for trick-or-treating too. We don't.
But we did. But then after COVID, suddenly it's like it stopped. We've got some tricklers that come through, and it's great to see. And I love that interaction. They come to your door, and you get to notice their costumes or smile or whatever. And then about 8:30, they all are like really tall teenagers. At which point you're like, here, I'm going to get rid of all the rest of the candy.
But you know what? Never knocked a teenager who was out there doing something fun with a pillowcase, and they didn't even try.
No, and I would say as long as they actually tried to have an outfit, I'd be like, here you go, get rid of this. But I think there's some other options too. Like if you just don't do that around your neighborhood anymore, I love what what one of our family members does. She makes a party at her house and invites all the neighborhood kids. So they start there with a party and then they go around together and they're reestablishing what it really used to be. And there's safety in numbers. And I like that.
Yeah, we always were like a pack of wild animals on Halloween. I'm not going to
what
was your favorite Halloween? What was your favorite Halloween candy?
Oh, favorite. I was going to say costume. I got to share my costume. My favorite costume nobody ever saw, because when you grow up trick-or-treating in Colorado, inevitably, the first snowstorm is on that day. My favorite was a genie costume. It did not have fishnet stockings. And it snowed, and I had to wear a parka over it. So after that, it was always, what can I wear over a parka?
I will take you to a completely different weather zone in Florida growing up. Now, I grew up in the 70s when we wore the plastic costumes with the plastic masks. So you basically were walking around hotboxing yourself because it was still 1 billion degrees on Halloween.
Great in Colorado.
Oh, you'd be sweaty. It was horrible. But my favorite costume I ever made, I was in college. And I went out with my girlfriends, and it was an elaborate costume. So I had this black tube of material. It had a white stripe down the middle. It had lights down each side. And then I did big hair, big makeup, big fake jewelry. And I was a runway model.
Oh.
And no one got it. No one got my costume.
They just thought you were already just naturally
and that was really
model.
what broke my heart. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't participate.
So when you talk about the plastic ones, okay, I am dating myself, but I was, born in Turkey on an Air Force base, so I think we did not have a whole lot of options. But I found one of my earliest costumes, and it was like that hard plastic. I was a lion, hard plastic, and then it was like that total polyester thing that you tie in the back.
It would totally catch on fire if you walked by the candle.
But they got a stage further. But you know what it actually says on it? It says flame retarded. It doesn't say flame retardant.
No.
And so there you go. That was an interesting. What's your favorite candy?
My favorite candy, I was the weird kid. Like, because if you have brothers and sisters, you come in from trick-or-treating, you all sit on the floor with your legs like this, you dump everything in the middle, you sort, and then you start swapping,
you start swapping what you like, what you don't like.
I loved the Hershey Special Dark. Oh. And the only time you could get it was at Halloween. Like they didn't sell the Special Dark bar. So I was always the kid that was like, here, you can have all of my other stuff as long as I get the Special Dark.
You were a connoisseur.
I was like a chocolate snob when I was 7. And it remains this way to this day.
Mine were Snickers. It had everything. The nougat, the nuts, the chocolate. So I was a traditionalist. So so when it comes to Halloween, what do you do as a mom?
My daughter always likes to wait until the last second, and then come up with the most elaborate costume she can think of. So usually scrambling to sort of get her where she's going. She's 16 now, so the pressure's kind of off. And I actually have some Halloween costumes that this year I'll be like, here, wear one of mine because they fit. But for us, we don't have trick-or-treaters at our house.
Yeah.
We don't have a good neighborhood for trick-or-treating. It's dark and we don't have sidewalks and it's just not good. So generally speaking, like I'm super low key on Halloween. My husband loves Halloween and I have let him down throughout our entire marriage. And I am so sorry.
Well, I think this is an opportunity for us to kind of reclaim it. Now, I know some people think it's weird you're actually teaching kids to go door to door and beg for something, but it's community.
You can teach them about socialism.
Yes.
When they come home and you make them pay the taxes.
That's exactly
like
right.
the parent tax is a thing and the parent tax exists and it should be paid.
Or you can treat them, you can teach them about fair trade. I'll trade you this for this. That's commerce. But I think it's an opportunity to kind of reclaim it. And I think there's a lot of kids that have lost a lot through COVID, through the changes, through the concerns, through the fears. It is a great opportunity. Either have a block party, or I have a friend who used to have all the parents out and she would actually bring out into the driveway the fire pit so they could all sit around. Someone would walk with the kids. I think it's time to reestablish it.
Several years ago, we used to go to my friend Karen's neighborhood, and she always had a great Halloween party. But one year she had a bunch of Jell-O shots left over. So I was like, I'll get rid of your Jell-O shot. So I literally was like the Jell-O shot Pied Piper of the neighborhood.
You did not give them to kids.
Oh, I did not give them to children. No.
Just want to clarify that.
No, I was giving them to the parents of the kids as we all walked around. So everybody was like, best Halloween ever. So just make up a batch of Jell-O shots, throw them in a bag, hand them out as you go. People will be your best friends.
And get to know your neighbors. I actually think this is a way to do that, to reestablish it if you're in the right neighborhood. Okay. That was kind of our fun and fluff segment. Now we have good news. Would you like to kick that off?
Well,
Mandy?
I would, except my good news went away. So just talk about that for a second.
This is how we stall for one another. So my good news story, this woman deserves a whole lot of credit for being super generous. Her name is Carrie Edwards. She just won, I think it was last week, the lottery in Virginia. And she, with her $1 ticket, she won $150,000. Now that's great. Anyway, but what she did with it was very interesting. She ended up giving all of it away. And she said, God is blessing me so I can bless others through him. But what I thought was interesting was her first donation. She gave 350,000 donations with it. And the first one was actually to the Association for Frontotemporal Degeneration. And the reason why, her husband passed away from that. And she decided she was going to give $50,000 to that kind of research, that organization, so others wouldn't go through what she went through. And I'm always amazed by people who take tragedy and turn it into purpose, turn it into giving. And that is a woman who obviously, I think through her faith, found gratitude, found the ability to bless others. And she said the joy that she's gotten by giving to these different organizations. Another one was a local farm that helps provide healthy food for underprivileged folks. And another one was an organization that helps the families of sailors and retired sailors who oftentimes are dealing with, poverty issues
physical
or whatever.
infirmities as well. That's a tough life.
Yeah, exactly. But I was like, that's a good news story. And you'd think maybe this was someone who's just used to having all this money. No, she just understood her gratitude and wanted to give back. So that's my good news story.
My good news story comes out of South Korea.
Okay.
And I just got to visit South Korea and Japan this past summer, and it was amazing, and I loved it, and I highly recommend it. Ooh, the jet lag is tough, but I highly recommend it. Loved Korea, though. What wonderful people. And of course, they're divided. North Korea is right across the DMZ from there. And there are a lot of families that have been separated by the Korean split. So there's an organization that specializes in helping people learn better English skills. And this organization specifically started reaching out to people who had come from North Korea and then helped them work on their public speaking and their English so they could share the story of their life in North Korea as a way of spreading the word. And they do this for free. They just help people. And one of the things that I think is very powerful, hearing straight from the mouths of people who have lived under a true dictatorship, who have lived under true oppression and true totalitarian, it gives you a perspective you cannot get from us sitting here and talking about it, right? I mean, when we have people running around in the United States saying, just like the Nazi regime, it's comically stupid. It truly is comically stupid. But these people actually did live under a horrific regime. So I love this. I love that there are people who are just saying, you know what, we're going to help you be able to communicate better because your message is important and we want you to be able to share it with as many people as possible.
That's great. That's great. Well, once again, it's that human interaction that you can do. So what is your kindness challenge?
My kindness challenge is a business challenge. And this is going to sound maybe kind of silly. I want you to use your social media, whatever your social media is, Instagram, Facebook, or whatever, to do your own little business spotlight on a business that you love. And it could be a restaurant, it could be a retail establishment, it could be your hairdresser, it could be whatever. But you would be shocked when two things happen. Number one, you're going to get a post from somebody saying, oh, I was looking for that business, that hairdresser, that restaurant. And you're eventually it's going to get back to the people who run that business. And they are going to be so incredibly grateful because small businesses, big businesses, the economy is not as good as they'd like it to be. And some businesses are really struggling. And you taking the time out of your day, doesn't matter if you're an influencer, it doesn't matter if you have 50 friends on your social media, you have influence. And that is so appreciated by these businesses. So my business challenge is do your own little endorsement video for your favorite business or your favorite business person or whatever, just to say, I appreciate you and the way you treat me, and I hope your business succeeds.
That is very good. And do that for our show, by the way.
Yes, by the way.
Do share it with others, though, by the way, because this is the show where we can talk about things and we can come together and pull back from them being so heightened and so weighty. I had a couple, but I'm just going to jump on one that reminded me of something that happened this week. And it's kind of a business one too. So you know how when you're checking out and there's like that little thing, you can do a little survey at the bottom and you think, oh, this person was super nice or this person was not so nice or whatever. If there is someone that went above and beyond, it is not a long thing to do to actually just scan that and give them a 5-star review. Don't ever give them lower than 5 because corporations will think, oh, well, they were not so good. But do that. I mean, that's somebody who went out of their way. And we need to, as Jack was talking about, we need to reward the things that we want. And if somebody in a world right now where customer service is really going down,
yes.
If somebody actually just is kind and says, I'm sorry, or thanks you for something, or just goes the extra mile, let's start rewarding that. That young person, for instance, at the grocery store might end up getting a raise, or they might find out they got a good review. It could be your mechanic. If you really like your mechanic, actually make that Yelp review. So I'm going hand in hand on that. We're small business and employee friendly this week for kindness challenges.
There you go. Okay, guys, thank you so much for watching this week. Feel free to go back and watch the rest of them as well. Plus, tell all your friends because you don't want to be the only smart one in your group. You want to make sure other people are as smart. And hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our shows. And we will be back. I think in next month's shows, I feel like we may have to talk about some cooking stuff, which will leave Deborah staring like a deer in the headlights trying to figure out, but it's Thanksgiving.
I will learn and be smarter with you. And then I'll talk about how to clean up. My husband have a great deal. He cooks, I clean.
It works
out beautiful. Great. I'll learn from you when we do it. Because we are about to enter the holidays, my favorite time of year.
Oh, it's practically Christmas already.
Oh, stop it.
I know, sorry. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much. Take care.